Hey everyone, hoping to borrow some wisdom from you all. It's about a demon I've been sort of fighting my whole life, about what I'm naturally good at, sort of contrasting either what I like or what I value. Um, for example, I've been told I'm pretty good at either leading, but I don't really want to lead. I seem to be pretty good at socializing, but it doesn't really energize me. And the last one that I'm struggling with the most is for example, I want to create some sort of platform for my local community for struggling youth, but it will involve some sort of content creation. And when I speak to people who are struggling mentally, I tell them to get off of content and stop consuming. So that is in direct contrast. When I was younger, I was full of ideals and ambitions. And as I got into the middle of my 20s, I became very pragmatic about everything, almost cutthroat. And as I got into my late 30s, I'm happy to say I've gotten my idealistic sense of self back. And I hold on to that dearly, and I don't want to lose it. So when I get advice such as, oh, you're going to have to suck it up and deal with these necessary evils, I don't necessarily think it's as black and white. I think I have a bit of a blind spot here. So very curious to see if anyone went through these struggles and how they were able to overcome it.
Hey, yeah, so I'll just give you my kind of like off the cuff response. But you're going to find a lot of people on this platform that are talented and smart and don't lack for energy. Myself being one of them, you probably being one of them. So at that point, it's actually, I think for a lot of people, it's about finding what they're good at and then doing it. What do you do if you're good at a lot of things? And I don't mean that arrogantly, because I didn't do anything to wind up this smart. That came from my parents, and same for everyone who's smart. So, but I am smart. And so it becomes a question of more just keeping myself interested in the sense that, every 6, 7, 8 years, I just pick up a whole new career. So I went from engineering. I was really successful in that. Graduate school, making good money at the time, gave that all up, became a professional skydiver, got to be the cameraman for the fifth national skydiving team in the world, close to the top of that sport, got hurt really badly. That sucked. Then I went into bartending, got to be, frankly, probably the best in the world at that or close to it. And then I got bored with that. So I went in up the stack. And at that point, I transitioned into some accounting sort of as a hobby in 2008. But I sold my restaurants, and then I went pretty big in the world of financial consulting and CFO work and things like that. And now I'm looking for something new to do. So I think, and so that's the first part of your question is what do you do when you're good at lots of different things? It becomes less easy. For most people, it's just find something you're good at and, put your back into it, right? But that's not the case with us. And so the other problem with it is that, if you're smart and you've started to lose the passion for what you're doing, you start seeing why people who cut corners and, do the wrong thing instead of the right thing, they get ahead short term. And that's a nauseating feeling, because for a smart person who has integrity, at any point, they are fully aware that to really max out the professional reward that they could be getting, they would have to dip below the floor of what they're willing to do. And they're not willing to do it, or I'm not willing to do it. I've never been, which is why I don't know, I'm not a wealthy person or anything like that, but I'm exceedingly happy. And, I'm still at 49 years old. I'm working on number theory and all sorts of different things, financial projects and things like that. So I think it's just a question of if you're built like that, you just got to keep falling in love with something new and interesting. And as far as the thing about content, try not to think of everything as all or nothing. You're right. People with mental health issues should probably avoid content, although even that's a generalization. But, the tool that builds the house, not necessarily the same tool that I don't know, lances the boil or something like that, right? So to build awareness in a platform in this modern environment, risk adjusted, it makes sense to have content. Now, using that content to raise money for a good cause, does that mean you're creating content out in the world that now is going to hurt people that you care about because they have mental health issues? I doubt it, because it's a big world out there. And how it's used matters more than what it is. So I don't know if any of that helps, but welcome to Airchat. Happy Monday.
Hey, thanks for replying. It seems like we're cut from the same cloth, so I really appreciate all of the stuff you said. I mostly agreed with it. The core thing that I'm struggling with isn't that I'm good at a lot of things, though I would say objectively I'm decent at a lot of things. I think the real struggle is what I'm naturally talented at, as I've found over the years, seems to contradict a lot of my values, or I guess just mentality. So for example, for the content creation, I tell a lot of struggling youth and friends to get off of content because you're just rotting your brain by going, piece after piece and stimulus after stimulus. But now if I were to create something either through writing or video or audio, I'm going to require that people consume it in order to help them. So it's just this weird contradiction now. I could put on my business cap and be a little game theoretical here and say, well, if I don't do it, someone else will do it, right? I'm sort of tired of thinking that way. And so I feel like there's a blind spot here. And that is why I'm wondering if anyone else has a balanced perspective on this. There may not be. I may just be trying to fetch too deep into my idealistic sense of self. So I don't know. Now I'm just airing my thoughts.
Well, so now thinking that through, it just sounds like that's not what you're supposed to do. Like it's straightforward to come up with things that like kind of one should do, i.e. it's worth doing in general. But it's not as easy actually to find the stuff that really gets your engine humming, as it were. So even if the idea of like helping people like that gets your engine humming, obviously something in the execution isn't there for it. So don't do it. It's okay to wait. It's very okay to wait. Just like sort of, or don't be idle, be idle, do whatever you want. But you're better off waiting when things don't feel like, if it's not like, wow, I really got to go do this right now, this is awesome, then you're fine to wait. And I think a lot more people go forward on plans that they weren't actually fully invested in, and then they end up wasting way more time than they would have otherwise, just because they think, oh, that's something I could do, so now I'm going to go and do it, and maybe 18 months later I'll think through like, oh, this wasn't right. So just be patient and be kind to yourself. Don't say bad things to yourself, and then in the meantime, go help other people. If you're bored, just go volunteer or help people, or just anything. Walk around and be nice to people, smile, open doors, help old ladies across the street, put on suntan lotion, all that good stuff.
Hey, Zhao, are you strong and fit? Because I don't think you can expand out to help others, or even to expand out to find out what it is that is your contribution to the world that is most aligned with your unique soul and self, if you're not embodied. And being embodied, I think, has to do with having your body be strong and preferably lean. I don't think if you can't control your intake, your inputs and your outputs of your own body, that you can have much hope of controlling the inputs and outputs of an endeavor or a community. I think that that's the place to start. So 3 questions. How many clean form pull-ups can you do in a row? How many clean form push-ups can you do in a row? And how many clean form deep knee bends can you do in a row? We exist in a gravity well. And if you cannot pull yourself up through it, you're not going to be able to pull anyone else up through it. Live as if you're in the ancestral environment. Be fit, be lean, be hungry. And then leverage using all the technology that's available to pursue an endeavor that aligns with your talents, a community that you care about, and something that you can get paid for, i.e. the market.
You cannot treat all content as equal. That's like saying all books are bad, or all videos are bad, or all speaking are bad. It's too broad, it's too generalized. The content actually matters. And if you don't believe that, then you shouldn't basically do anything in terms of learning or society. So I don't think the issue is creating content versus not creating content, or consuming content or not consuming content. It's what kind of content do you create and what kind of content do you spread. And if you're speaking truth, and if you're speaking from deep understanding, and if you're speaking with good intentions, then I don't think there's anything wrong with creating content. And if you're lying, or if you're doing it to improve your own lot at the expense of others, or if you're just sort of bloviating because you just want more followers and more attention, then yeah, that content should neither be created nor consumed.
Hey, Parsa, that's a super interesting perspective I didn't even think about. But to answer at least one of your questions, I am in probably the best shape of my life. I wouldn't say I'm like world bodybuilding shape, but yeah, I feel decently strong enough. But in terms of the metaphorical, am I able to carry a community? I guess that's, yeah, who knows? I think there is little evidence here and there that I can at least contribute, and I'd like to think I can, and have enough energy to give a little away. Hey, Naval, thanks for the truth bomb. Yeah, I think there is a bit of an unspoken truth here in that I probably am afraid of rejoining the attention economy, where I'll be having to compete, I guess, for better or for worse. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I did have to do it before for my previous project, had some fun, but yeah, I'm going to do things my way this time. There's no point promoting. If people want to find my content, they'll find it. There's no point putting hours of thought into thumbnails and such. So whatever I'm going to do it my way. It's going to be how I express myself, and hopefully people find, at least, even if one person finds it useful, I'll have done something right with it.
I think that's the right approach. That sounds very authentic. And all these fly-by-night internet marketers building listicles and optimizing flows and cover thumbnails and so on are just largely wasting their time. Figure out the best tool for the job, but then just express what you can uniquely express authentically without it feeling like work to you, but still providing value to others. And if you feel like you have nothing unique enough to express that other people will want, then it's time to get busy learning and thinking and reflecting.
Hey, I'm so glad that you're in shape. I think that so many people are not these days, that it's really hard for them to figure anything out because their whole body is a little bit catawampus. I made a little thing for you. I'm going to share it right now, and then I'll just explain what it is, and hopefully you find it helpful. 1 second. I don't want to suck up all the oxygen in this chit stream with point by point on this, but I'll explain a few points. You can just take a look at it, and then I will explain a few things about it. So the first thing is that there's so much noise in the world these days that if you don't actively try to focus on what you want to bring in, and I think you were referring to this about the content you were consuming, but it's more than that. So you need to have a space within which to work. I think that's very important. It's got to be clean. It's got to be orderly. It's got to be not cluttered. And then you need to think about what you want to work on. I think fasting helps to focus the mind. I think going outside and taking walks helps to open up creativity. And so I think you combine those two things, and it's very effective. Then there's amazing content out there for somebody who doesn't quite know what they want to do or how to do it. And I would, I recommend Naval's Tweetstorm and the podcast that him and Nivi put together that covers it. I think that's very valuable stuff, and it's very concise. It's very actionable. And I would start there. I would also look at Paul Graham's essays and tweets, and I would also look at Naval's tweets. I said tweets, but his videos. I think he has a few videos out there that are worth looking at. And then Scott Adams, really valuable resource, his live stream, his tweets, and his books. But you don't want to just consume. You want to iterate on these great ideas, these great thinkers, and add the thing that only you can add. Because this is going to get to the point, which is that you want to be able to stand on the shoulders of giants and then reach for the stars, and in only a way that you can do. And so what I recommend, what I think is a good practice, is you could take a small piece of somebody else's insight, whether it's Naval or Paul Graham or Scott Adams, and then think about an insight or an inspiration or a reference or something that you can add that only you can add. So wake up, walk, fast, work, learn, create. And because you're a biological being, you'll be consuming liquids. You're going to have to pee. So everyone talks about going to the gym. I think it's a waste of time unless you have everything else dialed in. You have plenty of time. I don't go to the gym. And so I think the best way to do fitness is with what you got where you are. And so I recommend just body weight exercises. So every time, and that's the XPX. It's a little kind of thing that I invented. So you're going to drink water, you're going to drink coffee, you're going to have to get up, you're going to have to pee. When you get up, do a set of push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, or squat-ups. If you have a pull-up bar. If you don't have a pull-up bar, just forget that one. Then you pee, then you do another set, and then you get back to work. And then the last thing after, you have 2 sessions of work, basically. You have a 3-hour session, then a 2-hour session, you have 3 walks. And then I would suggest that in your second work session, you study something that's not, it's different. It's about seduction. It's about game. It's about being confident. And I'm assuming you're heterosexual. You might not be, in which case I have no advice here for you. But if you are heterosexual, those references I list there are very valuable. And they're almost as valuable as I would say as the previous references, because one is sort of wealth creation, and the other one is it's confidence. It's some other version of wealth. It's an internal resources. It's game, and game is applicable in every aspect of life. Confidence as well. So you'll learn a lot from Paul, Naval, Scott Adams, and then from these other guys, you'll learn the confidence to interact with other people, and especially with women. I have noticed that young men have a real problem with this, and they don't have a lot of tools or references to achieve their desires, if you will, in intersexual interactions as they do in these other interactions that are covered in the first set of references. Then you walk again, obviously the XPX, and then you're in bed, reading, no screens, no videos, no music, and get to bed by 9 p.m. and then read. Read the Naval Almanac, read Scott Adams' books, read Nassim Taleb's Inserto. You do that, and I mean, I'd be surprised if you do all that for, I don't know, a month or two, if something doesn't unlock in you. And if you do, and once you're ready, I actually have a framework for discovering, productizing, and powering your purpose as a startup, which I'm happy to share with you. But I think you need to get like a solid foundation first. You seem a little bit, maybe that you need to level set before you launch your rocket. Anyway, I hope this is useful. I thought about this in terms of what I would say to my own sons. And so that's what I did.
There's so much excellent advice here, Jal, and it's coming from different perspectives. And there's like fitness, strength in your body, authenticity, patience with yourself. And I'm not sensing that you have a lack of ability, of potential or capabilities. Those are the talents you have. Those are the tools that have been given to you that you get to use here. I think the difficulty is in making a decision about what you're going to do, how you are going to deploy those tools that you have. And I've realized that my mind is not a perfect simulator of reality. And so I have resorted to actually doing things, practice, investing enough to test the idea and see how it feels in practice versus thinking about it and thinking that what I think is how it is going to be, right? I think a perfect example is thinking about love at first sight, right? You've got people that fall in love the first time and it turns out that they fall in love with the right person and it's beautiful. They get to spend the rest of their lives with this beautiful person. But then you've got another perspective where you get closer to that person that you fell in love with and then you realize that they're not so great. And the more time you spend with them, you realize, this was not so great, right? On the other side, you've got things that develop slowly. You fall in love over time. it starts off lukewarm and it gets hotter. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize I love this so much. I didn't realize I would feel so good. This is nice. I'm so grateful. This is my purpose, right? And it's like what connects the two ideas of love at first sight and love that develops over time. How you find out which one is best is by doing stuff in the real world. Realizing that your mind is not a perfect simulation forces you to actually try stuff. I hope that's helpful.
Hey man, I don't have any context of what you do, but it sounds like you feel quite frustrated with creating content, and you sort of create from a place of kind of wanting to put it out there and expecting something, but then you come from a place of authenticity and you don't demand to be seen. I think that's really good attitude. And to add to that, I would say something that you feel like you have to say. Is your personal truth and is original and is an add to the world, and say it with conviction. So, something that deeply, deeply resonate with you, that you gain, like wisdom and knowledge that you gain through hard work and suffering and all that. I think those are really powerful messages because you personally feel it. Let's call yourself an energetic being, right? Or some sort, like you actually have felt it. It became very intense for yourself. And then you're sort of transferring that energy and message out. That I think adding to the, not expecting and not demanding, having conviction, having the confidence, having truly believing something of value you have to channel out into the world is also a good place to share your message from. So hope that helps. I don't quite understand the question, what you're good at and contrasting what you like and you value. Are you saying what you are naturally good at is not something that you enjoy doing? So I heard you talk about socializing. So is it something that doesn't energize you and you feel like even though you're good at it, you don't want to hone in on that? Is that the sort of I guess the problem that you conjured up? Hey man, I think you have to also be more specific about leading and socializing, right? Leading a group of CEO from Fortune 500 companies and leading a bunch of delinquents, a very different type of leadership. And same goes for socializing, right? Socializing with a bunch of, party goers and teenagers who are arrogant and ignorant is very different from, building communities and socializing with teenagers who are aiming up, who are trying to better themselves and try to be better and be a positive force in the world. So I think it's not true to say that you are, don't like socializing. We are social animals. We like socializing. It's just we don't like certain energies from certain people. I think the way I see content is just they're containers for ideas and stories and arguments, right? So reading a scientific paper is also content, right? And the problem with content consumption, the kind that you think is not good, it's really the fragmented attention effect that it brings through very, very quick context switch and very rapid firing of dopamine, right? And of course, we want to avoid that. We want to preserve our mind and sanity sometimes, and cultivate the ability to pay attention for longer periods of time so that we can understand more complex stories, more complex things, and really practice the art of noticing, right? So what I would say is for yourself in terms of content creation, you can create newsletters, you can write blog posts that are longer form, YouTube videos that don't use those attention hooking techniques that evoke that kind of dopamine hitting pattern. And it's kind of like karma, right? You naturally draw people who can pay attention that way, and you will filter out people who don't pay attention that way, because people who scroll TikTok the way you describe won't be able to consume your content. and you'll be attracting the right crowd that you want to help. So I think that I hope that helps. Yeah, it is probably true that someone else would do it. And I think that the fact that you're paying attention to that instead of thinking what and in what form you are putting your content and messaging out says something about where your head is at. You're sort of external focus instead of internal focus. And it is not wrong to focus on the external. We have to practice that awareness. But I think it's also important to put your feelings first, and your well-being and your quality of life and that kind of stuff first. And probably it might deviate a bit from topic, but I think those things, as in your sense of self, I guess, comes first. And then there are things that you want to say and you want to help people with that will make you happy. And therefore you're doing it in the way that you think makes sense, rather than, other people are doing this and I'm trying to compete with them and I'll do this so that they can't do that, and sort of applying the whole game theory stuff, right? Just try to inquire a little more into why your attention is external rather than internal. I love the fat shaming there. And I think you're absolutely bang on in saying that if someone cannot control their physical body, how are they going to control something as ambiguous and vague as the mind, And that is just a great observation and heuristic for assessing someone's character. And yeah, love that. That is so very true. And I would also say, I would take this to the extreme and say, these are thinkers and they're very heady and they are very intellectual. But I would take it to the extreme and then say, hey, look at people like Jacob Collier. Look at people like Mike Tyson. Look at people like, like improviser who do theater work. Look at actors who perfected the craft of acting, and then see what insights you can draw from there. Because the more you look into this network of knowledge and human wisdom and human endeavors, really, human doing things to entertain, to educate, to create value in the world, you realize there are some commonalities and common craftsmanships and patterns, and we are all utilizing to get to the place those people have gotten to. And that's where the really original insights come from. And I'm not saying the Scott Adams and Naval and Paul Graham, I think it's called, are not good, but there's a very good starting point, and taking it to the extreme to look at, follow your curiosity, be completely open-minded and draw the parallels, however crazy they come, and be open-minded to them, not to judge them, and listen to that voice, and inquire. Yeah. And thank you guys for sharing your wisdom and insights and knowledge and resources in the modern dating room. And I started looking into it, and it definitely transferred into doing my job in sales and, sort of inquiring and bringing awareness of my own urges and accepting the shame that came and acknowledging it, and just kind of live in the world where I'm confident and not ashamed, and have that confidence to basically own anything, and I don't demonize any sort of desire I have, and not feeling the need to cover up and try to hide my intention. And really appreciate you guys